All right, 8 things that successful, wily, intelligent bench pressers do before benching heavy. Plus, stick around for the end, one bonus tip that you might just not usually think about. Number 1, stance. Remember, the bench is not that wide. It doesn't give you much lateral stability. It's your stance that really gives you lateral stability. It also allows you to drive with your legs, which we'll get to here in a little bit. It allows you to kind of compress yourself, make yourself more rigid. So take a stance that's roughly squat width. You can go a little bit wider if you want, but a squat width stance does pretty well. And keep your feet flat on the floor. If you're benching in competition, a lot of times that's a rule anyway, but flat feet are more stable. You can drive into the floor better with flat feet than you can with your heels up. Number 2, grip. Take a grip that is about a hand width wider than where the knurling starts. For most people, that will work pretty well. We're looking for a grip that permits vertical forearms at the bottom of the bench. So one hand width wider than where the knurlings start, or about a thumb's distance out. One length of your thumb will work pretty well. Also remember, you want the bar positioned over the bones of your forearms. So pronate your grip a little bit. Make sure the bar is being supported in the base of your hand, not up by the pads of your fingers. Lastly, do not take a suicide grip. Wrap your thumb around the bar. Yes, you can do it. Number 3, chest should be up, shoulders should be pinched back and down. This puts your shoulders in a stronger, safer position from which to bench, and by getting your chest up, it also puts your pecs in a more mechanically advantageous position to bench from. Number 4, and this is very closely related to the concept of getting your chest up and providing yourself with that nice arch. Number 4 is leg drive. Your feet should be driving into the ground almost as if you are trying to slide up the bench. In other words, trying to slide toward the rack. Now, you don't want to slide toward the rack, of course, but the bar is going to be pinning you in place anyway. You need to be driving with your legs, not up off of the bench. In other words, your butt should not be coming up off the bench, but horizontally up the bench so that it provides stability. Remember, you drive with the legs. This is related to stance. You drive with the legs so that you have stability and so that you can make yourself more rigid, more compressed in a manner of speaking. Number 5, focal point. Have one, and it's not the bar. The bar moves. Don't stare at something that moves. Pick a spot on the ceiling at the top of the bench. You can still see the bar in your periphery. That bar needs to finish in the same place every single time at the top of each rep. Number 6, breathing, bracing, getting tight, performing your Valsalva. Now, we've covered all the details of how to do this for lifting in general in several other videos. We'll link to one of those up here. But suffice to say, some interesting notes for the bench press. Number 1, the bench is probably the one lift where you might consider doing multiple reps on one breath. That's fine, but don't take this as a test of your manhood or womanhood to see how many breaths or how many reps you can get on one breath. Do not pass out on the bench press. It's a real bad idea. Number 2, as you're taking breaths in between reps, don't try to take the biggest possible breath. Remember, every single time that you do that, it's going to move your upper body, which is going to make it difficult to keep your shoulders pinched back into place. So think of it as kind of a topping off breath when you do need to breathe in the bench. Number 7, how to do a lift-off if you're benching by yourself. If you're benching with someone, it's always great to have a lift-off, to have a spotter help you with the lift-off so that you can stay in position real well. However, if you're lifting on your own, a lot of times it's difficult to manage that distance from the J-hooks to the position over your shoulders where you're going to start. And we've got videos that cover this more in detail as well, and we'll link to that up here in the corner. However, suffice to say for now, you want to use the leverage of the rest of your body, of your body from your shoulders on down to help you get that bar into position. So you're going to temporarily lift your hips up off the bench. You're going to flare your elbows out and back slightly, unrack the bar, and then use the leverage of your body, bring your hips back down to the bench as you bring that bar into position. This will make a big difference in terms of unracking a heavy bench. Watch the video, it covers it far more in detail. Number 8, and then we'll get to the bonus tip, safeties or have a spotter. Ideally, you would have a spotter. It's great for the handoff. It's also great for if you get in trouble. Remember, the bench is the one lift that can kill you, so don't let it. So ideally, you'd have a spotter. However, a lot of times that's not practical. So you've got to make sure that you set the safeties at the appropriate height. They've got to be set low enough that you don't run into them when benching, but they've also got to be set high enough that they prevent you from having any trouble if you do fail a rep, that you can just collapse your arch, set the bar on the safeties, and then do the kind of, slither of shame out from underneath the bar. We've got videos that cover this as well. We'll link it up here in the corner as well in the description. I'd also recommend not using collars. Yes, technically, if you're using safeties, if you're using the pins, you can use collars. However, on the off chance that you forget to set the safeties, that day. Should you miss a rep, you can always dump the bar from side to side. However, note that ditching the collars, not having collars, will not prevent you from the type of catastrophic disaster that happens during the unrack process. So having safeties is really the way to go here. Safeties or spotters. And last, your bonus tip, something that people very often don't think about when benching, but you go out and watch on YouTube, you go out and watch on social media, watch some of those guys and gals who are benching big weights. What will you notice, especially when they're in a competition? They're still using chalk. No, it's not as important as it is on something like a deadlift, but grip is important. We are interacting with the bar. If you have ever had your hand remotely start to slide on a bench press, you will know what I'm talking about. So you don't need to chalk up a whole bunch, but you're going to want to get some chalk on your hands. Remember, you're not just dealing with the moisture from your hands. If you're training in a public gym, you're also dealing with the moisture, the oils, the sweat from somebody else's hands potentially as well, especially if you're lifting in a competition where a whole bunch of people are handling the same bar. So if your set matters, and I hope it does, a little bit of chalk is probably a good idea. As always, we hope this helps you get stronger and live better.